high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Talking Catholic. This is Mike Bress, and I am here today with Jen Mauro.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, we reversed the roles a little bit.
I know.
And I actually didn't screw that up.
You did really well.
That was one take, ladies and gentlemen.
And you didn't even write down the words Talking Catholic.
No, I just said them under my breath for the last 2 minutes while we hit the record button so that I would remember what I had to say.
I am so excited to be the second person and not the intro person. That is my first time doing that in 2 years.
Wow. Okay. So we broke a streak. That's okay. It was nerve-wracking, but we got through it, and we're now in the midst of going, so that's good.
Off to a great start right out of the thing. So how are you?
I'm doing good. A little bit of a crazy month. You know, September is for everybody back to school month, and for me that means going to the schools a lot of times with Bishop Sullivan, which is always exciting. We are finishing the first sort of week. By the time this recording comes out, we'll have gone to 3 of our high schools for the Mass of the Holy Spirit, which is sort of the official school-wide mass to start the academic year for our high schools. And Bishop is always wonderful. He takes some time out after the mass to speak with students. I think for Camden Catholic yesterday was the campus ministry, Christian ministry class. So it was made up of all seniors who help develop the retreats, and they do a lot of the service projects.
Oh, wow.
And so he got to be in the classroom with them, and they had this great wheel of questions. So they previewed and I guess brainstormed the questions that they wanted to ask him. Okay. And they just spun the wheel. And
like a Wheel of Fortune thing?
Sort of, it's like a prize wheel whenever you go to those, like carnivals and things. And it was great. So I think favorite food and easy topics, but stuff he was happy to talk about.
What? What were some of the answers? Do you remember? Or the questions?
So the one I distinctly remember, because I was walking in and out a little bit because of the space of the classroom, but one of them was his favorite type of food. Okay. Which was Chinese food. Which
I'm surprised.
A little bit, but being from the Bronx and everything, thought maybe pizza or something traditional to New York. But he said Asian food, but specifically in that group, Chinese food.
Well, considering how multicultural in a diverse area that he served, I guess that makes sense.
Would be, yeah.
But it would definitely not have been my first choice. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. All right. So now not only do I wish I had been there, but let's get one for the office.
Yeah. I'm good for that. Yeah. Well, I actually did say, and this is how we bring these things into reality, right? Is say I'm on the podcast and now they're on record. I said to Mr. Walsh, Mike, the other Mike, that as part of this podcast, it would be really fun to, with our guests, have them spin the wheel and have some question at some point in the show.
That is brilliant.
If the two of us say this, and because he's not here,
right,
it's going to happen.
Also, I'm really, first off, congratulations to our guest, because since we just mentioned it now, you're free. You don't have to do that.
You don't have to do it.
And second off, I like how you said that about once we mention it on the podcast, it's real, because I'm going to surprise our guest with 2 things that I'm going to mention to see if they can happen.
I think the last time I was on, it happened to me.
Yeah,
and I'm working on planning that thing as well. So yes, this happens.
I've gotten many suggested, voluntold of real life things happen on the podcast from Mr. Walsh. So
yeah, and because it's sort of a visual bit, there has to, I think when possible, a video component will definitely have to play a role, or a photo of that.
John
part
Kalins
of
will love
it.
that, who always wants to record these podcasts anyway. So
so that was definitely something that was fun about that particular visit, just because it was cool to see a different way to sort of ask him the questions, because although he is not at all intimidating when you meet him, I think your initial feeling, especially as a teenager, is I don't know what to ask him. I don't, and their teacher, Jen LaRosa, who runs their campus ministry stuff for the school, is great, and she does wonderful with that class. And so it was great that she had that idea. So, but as all good marketers do, I'm stealing that idea.
Of course, as well you should. And I'm glad that again it's on air. So now there's proof.
Now there's proof that it's going to happen. How about with the paper?
The paper's been busy covering the bishop at all of the Holy Mass of the Holy Spirit. Actually, it's already off to a very busy September. I guess
Yeah,
it's not even
we're
fall yet,
still,
really.
yeah.
But yes, Bishop Sullivan has been visiting the high schools, as you mentioned. The week before that, the first week of school, he was crisscrossing the diocese, literally, visiting all of our grammar schools and elementary schools, which was wonderful. And I have to say, and if you pick up a issue of the Catholic Star Herald or visit online, especially the photo galleries, you're going to see the best photos, because when Bishop's visiting, he's visiting with Father Nevitt, Joshua Nevitt, who's the Associate Director of Vocations. And some of the gifts that they bring to the kids are these vocations.
The sunglasses,
I Race for Vocations, white sunglasses. And then to see Bishop put them on, or the principals put them on, and the kids are loving them. We actually had to bring a whole nother box over because the kids are loving these sunglasses. And the photos are fantastic. I think your boss,
I was going to say, we
Bill
may
Watson,
or may not have a photo of Dr. Watson with the sunglasses on, looking cool and professional as ever.
I think there should be a 12-month calendar of Dr. Watson wearing the sunglasses.
They're just that good. And he looks just that good in them.
He
Absolutely.
does. It's actually pretty, because he's wearing the suit. He looks so professional, and he's got the sunglasses.
And just a cool look as he's sitting there. It was
stellar.
And one great one that came out of that I'll share, because you bring it with the elementary schools, is, and it sort of speaks to Catholic education in general, I would say, is at one of our schools, Bishop McHugh, which is down towards the shore. He got all of the schools like to give him gifts when he's there, and he always loves having the kids come up and interacting with him. So this one of the students that came up at Bishop McHugh is now in 8th grade, but one of the last times he visited, he was in preschool or kindergarten, and he did the same thing. So he gave Bishop a hat, and so Bishop took off his garment during the Mass and gave it to him to wear that while he put the hat on. And we have a picture in the Star Herald at the time. And now he's in 8th grade, and he's like 2 feet taller than he was, maybe even more. And so he's almost as tall as the bishop, and he's this grown kid. The great part is his hair didn't change. Yeah. Which I was like, he has this distinct look, very curly, distinct look haircut. And his mom came up to me and they were so excited that they could do that again and sort of almost recreate the moment. And for him to be there, that'll be, if it's preschool or kindergarten, 9 years.
Yeah, it was. Because you told me that little tidbit when you came back, and I dug out that photo from our archives. Yeah. And it's on page 3 of one of the most recent issues of the Catholic Star Herald. And there's this 8th grader handing the gifts over, running right next to a photo of the same kid as a kindergarten or pre-kindergarten, exchanging hats with the bishop. It's adorable. Yeah. So I'm glad that you told us that. Yeah, because when you said that, I was like, I'm going into the archives.
The mom was so excited. She still had the photo on her cell phone, or an example of the photo on her cell phone, and it was just really cool. Yeah, and she was just so proud. And she said, I don't know if you know this, and I haven't been with the diocese long enough to know that. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, that's so cool. You have to send us the real. Before I saw that we had the photo in the paper already, I said, you have to send that to me so that we can put it in the paper with side by side.
That was great.
Yeah, but he loves that, and he's just so good with the kids. Yes. And so it's a great part of the work that I do, is being there to see him interact and just having fun with the kids.
It's definitely a blast. So just to mention a couple of the quick things that we have coming up in the Diocese of Camden before we introduce our guest. So don't forget that on October 11th, Wednesday, we have our annual Catholic Charities dinner and awards, and we will be honoring Disciples of Mercy from across the diocese, those who have done good work on Above and Beyond to help their neighbors in need. And also Catholic Charities will be honoring Dr. Hushman from Rowan University in Glassboro. And we also recently announced our MC, Pat Shiraki, longtime journalist out of Philly.
CBS 3, I believe, right?
I believe so.
Yep.
So I'm very excited about that, because now
you're off the hook.
I'm off the hook. If anybody listened, that was another one that Walsh said on air. Jen, it's going to be you if we can't get an MC. But thank goodness I was like number 5 on the list, so we're good. So actual professionals.
Given the writer's strike is still going on, that would have been tough for you to write material for it. So you're kind of off the hook on that.
I mentioned that maybe I should be on strike. I'm going to tell Mike to fast forward to minute 9:45 when I said that. Anyway, anything else you want to promote before we
No, I think,
talk to our guest?
I think, and as we get into the conversation, I think one of the big things that we're focused on now for some of our middle school audience is high school registration for next year is starting to come up. So especially the parents in 8th grade or students in 8th grade are thinking about a Catholic high school. We've just put up some information about their open houses. They're coming up in October. There is a new, I won't go into huge detail here because it's complicated and not the message on this podcast, and we want to keep it fun. But we helped revamp the high school placement test, which is the vernacular HSPT, with the Camden County schools to make it one day and make it easier for families to go to one location and only have the students take it once. So that's on November 4th, which is a Saturday. And so our Camden County schools are Camden Catholic High School, Paul VI High School, and Gloucester Catholic. And so they will all be testing on that day. You can go to any of those locations and have your scores shared with the other schools that you apply to. So that's an exciting thing. It's been a good amount of work between the schools and our office to do that. So I wanted to make sure we promoted that. We're always promoting openings at our schools. Fortunately, we have the school's opened with all the teachers, and we have most of them up and running, but there's some part-time positions that are open. So always go to our site to see what's open and become a part of one of our school's teams.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, now that we've talked about testing, and our guest has yawned 3 times, but not because he's bored. I think it's because he has a 2-year-old son, so I'm going to give it to him. We have on the show today Mark Zimmaro, who is the only and our award-winning, that's literally award-winning, sports reporter for the Catholic Star-Herald. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Jen and Mike. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Thank you. Great. Thank you so much for having me here.
All right. So tell us, all right, first off, I'm really excited. You were in the office today. You got to meet the staff.
For the first time,
the first time. For those who don't know, Mark is a correspondent for the Catholic Star-Herald and other entities, which he'll discuss. So for Mark to be able to come into the office and meet the staff, how was that experience for you, Mark? Because I feel like you may have been a superstar today.
You guys really blew up my ego today, I got to admit. I mean, to have so many people actually know who I was just amazing. Because I was telling Jen before the show, COVID changed everything. I don't go to an office for my 9-to-5 job anymore. I just work from home. I still haven't met people I've worked with 4 years now. So it's neat coming into a place and finally meeting some people in person in this place.
We were excited too.
Yeah, I think it for me, I've just sort of celebrated 2 years here. I'm going into my 3rd official school year, the way our calendar works out, and I've been helping edit the paper for that time, and seeing your tagline, but not seeing you in the office. Was this an amalgamation of people that are all doing this? We just call them Mark, and how does this work?
Air quotes, Mark is coming into the office today.
It's sort of prolific in all of these stories and how you get everything. So it was to see that as one man is that much more impressive. So I'm going to join the ego party.
Well, thank you.
And it's funny, I sent Mark an email the other day because Mark Zimmaro takes photos for our paper, and he does photo galleries, and he writes. And we also have one of our photographers who shoots sports. Mark happened to catch our other photographer's, I think, nephew in a photo, and it was I think a middle school student, which we don't get too many middle school pro sports in. So that was pretty exciting.
Yeah, that was a cross country event over at Cherokee High School, and there was just a bunch of different schools in it, and I was there early, and the middle schools were running, and I was like, oh, there's some Catholic kids in this. Let's see. But they come up so fast on you, so you don't know who's who. But I just got lucky and got that one. So
our photographer called me, our correspondent Joe, and he said, my mom wanted me to tell you that he likes Mark's photos better now because Mark got a photo of my nephew. I thought that was pretty good. I just said that right off to Mark. So let's talk a little bit about you real quick. Introduce you to those who may have not know you. Now, you were on the podcast with us last summer, I believe. Mm-hmm. But just remind the listeners who all you do work for and what everything that you do for all 3 entities.
Okay. My main job is for the South Philly Review. It's a weekly paper in South Philly, and I cover community news and some high school sports, which they didn't really do at first, but but, me being in love with high school sports, I started introducing that and starting to take off a little bit. So I'm happy about that. But, we're still very community-based over there. And then I freelance for the Catholic Star Herald, of course, and also Philly Sports Digest, which covers the Philadelphia Catholic League, and as well as I cover field hockey for the Friends League over there, the Friends School League.
How do you manage all of that and a 2-year-old and I don't know if I'm allowed to say it on the air, but another on the way?
Another on the way.
I'm hesitant, waiting for you to give me the next stop, but you didn't, so good.
The short answer is my wife is a saint. She works a full-time job, and we do have daycare for the little guy, so he's loving that, by the way. And it's a team. We get everything done and work some weird hours here and there, but everybody's happy, so we're pushing forward.
We're very appreciative.
Yeah, and I said to Jen before, we were talking a little bit yesterday and then this morning about the interview, and I said we talk about how you get this coverage and seeing all the entities that you're with. I made the reference that for me, you're like our version of Adam Schefter from ESPN.
Wow.
And not only with the social content, which we're going to talk about, but just like the stuff that you get where, did you hear so-and-so scored their 1000th point? We just saw that on Mark's feed. Yeah. And I'm like, no, not even think it was close. Okay, great. Let's make sure we talk to the schools on that. So it's great. I love to, we're going to talk about particularly our area, but you just said your sort of love of high school sports. So, was that always sort of the goal, when you were going into writing, like that you wanted to focus on sports or certain kind of journalism?
I really didn't know. I sort of got into this by accident. I was working in a warehouse for some friends of my family, and a good friend of mine that I met one summer when I worked down in Wildwood. I lived down in Wildwood for a summer when I was 21 years old, and I met a good friend named Joe Mason, and he was already into journalism. He was at Temple going through the ranks there, and he started freelancing at the Burlington County Times, and they just asked, he knew I loved sports, and he said, you're a smart guy. I know you could handle this. Do you want to just cover some high school football games on a freelance basis? See if you like it. And so I did, and that was in 2002, and just kind of worked my way through that company where they liked my work ethic and how much I just love getting into
was
this.
Everywhere, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So they gave me a shot as a part-timer, just answering some phones and doing box scores and things like that, and then eventually gave me a swimming beat was the first thing I ever had.
Oh, wow.
High school swimming. So I had no idea what I was doing, but learned on the fly, I can barely swim myself.
But describing what they're doing in that pool.
Exactly, yeah. So, and then it took off. And then I eventually, I wanted to get into full-time sports there, but nothing was opening. So a job opened in news there. So I decided to take the plunge, just wanted to get my foot in the door, learn some other things. Did 5 years of community reporting over there, covering the towns out by the military base, out by like Fort Dix and McGuire Air Force Base. And then after a while, I started making. We were starting to introduce video into what we were doing with news. So we were all taking these classes about how to do news packages, and they wanted us to practice, so I started using my dog to make videos and made some pretty funny ones and shared them around the office, and then they got all the way up to the top somehow, and they liked what I was doing and said, hey, we know you love sports, you're good at video, we're thinking of starting some advancing our coverage and doing high school football shows. And they said, how would you like to step in there and take charge of this? And I said, I'd love to. So that was in 2013. And then I did that. We started a product called Game On over there, and it eventually expanded to all the other sports as well. And it was the most fun I've ever had in doing sports journalism. It was so fun. And unfortunately, the way things went with the company, they got bought by a bigger company, came in and just laid off entire departments, and I was one of the casualties in 2019. And then, picked myself up and just started doing some freelance work. And, I was lucky enough that, the Catholic Star Herald, we made a nice connection early under Carl. And then when Jen took over, she just loved the idea of expanding sports. And you have been my biggest supporter. I love it so much, what we're doing here.
I do too.
We're really expanding it, and I think we've made a name for ourselves now.
I do too.
I agree, and I will thank you as the social media person for the school's office, that having content for the schools, especially the high schools, has been fantastic, because there are days where I'm looking for content or I'm trying to come up with something, and I just go to the sports page and I say, oh, he did another great feature. I'm going to load that up and share it, and it's just I remember my days. I was a high school cross country and track guy, and it was always a thrill to go into the paper to see if your times were in there, and it never felt so cool as when like the local county paper at the time called for an interview of like the track preview. I'm sitting outside with the phone. Sure, I can talk about my outlook. It's like a high school senior. So and there's such, I think the kids, not only do the parents appreciate it, but the kids have to get a little bit of a thrill of being interviewed.
They do, and it's funny sometimes because I'll interview somebody and I'll see they're like shaking a little bit, and I'm just like, oh, you're nervous. Like I forgot. I've been doing this so long that I forgot.
Yeah, for them it's the first time.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
The kids do get nervous sometimes, but a lot of them are just so good, and they really open up. And I can't force these kids to tell these stories. They're just very good at sharing the things they do besides sports, and that makes such a better feature when you're explaining all those things that run alongside it. And then also at the same time we're showing how successful the teams are and all the great things that they're doing on the field. So it's a great mix.
I was telling Mark earlier that the story that you did this week on volleyball.
Emily O'Donnell from Camden Catholic.
Yes. And how she didn't know volleyball beforehand, right?
Right. Yeah.
You tell the story. You were actually the one who.
Yeah. That was one of.
Keep going.
I try to show up early for my assignments and catch the coach maybe ahead of time and just ask what the storylines are of the team. And Alex Kish over there, he's been the coach for 5 years now. He just said, I got this girl. She just kind of burst onto the scene. She started as a freshman, having no experience ever playing volleyball. And, last year she got some touches, and now she's like our main player. She's amazing. This kid jumps out of her shoes, and, she's not like a really big kid either, but she's just a fantastic athlete. And just started learning in the backyard with her dad, who also didn't know anything about volleyball. So it's just funny thinking about how they just got together there and learned the sport together.
Yeah,
and
Mark painted a really good story.
Yeah.
I mean, a good picture of the story, because he was like, the dad just basically throws the ball over the net so she can practice hitting. I could picture that in my mind, and it was just like, oh my gosh, so adorable.
Yeah. And it's so funny that you hear so many stories like that, where it wasn't the first thing, it wasn't a family, we were talking a little bit off air. I follow golf quite a bit, and the recent tournament, the a player at the gala that won the one PGA Tour tournament, they had a thing online about his story, and that his dad was a tennis player, but he thought maybe golf would be something for his son, and that's what he just took him to the local place. They started hitting on the putting green, and he was like, all right, he's pretty good. Maybe we'll get some lessons. But he had no idea. And he's also an immigrant, so he was new in the country a little bit, and so it was culturally learning not only American sports, but on top of that, a whole new one. And now he's a professional, right? Yeah. So, I got a chance to look at that story yesterday, and it was incredible to think we're going to figure this out together. Here we go. Let's just, and I guess in that moment, thank God for YouTube and other things that you can, that people can look at now.
Well, that's what's great about, especially the schools we cover, is they encourage the kids to play more than one sport too. So, you may go into high school thinking you're this great baseball player, and then you find out you're actually a lot better at basketball, or and then you take off with it.
Yeah.
And, 8th grade. Who knows, what you're good at that point. So you got to figure it out. And it's great that the schools really encourage that, and they want the kids to get involved in, sports and academics and, clubs and things like that. Because I feel like every athlete I interview for, especially the girls, they are always involved in the different clubs at school. And it's so great that they I don't know how they find time to do all of it, but they do.
I agree. That's exactly what I was just going to say. I read when I read your work, and they're also on the student council and this club and that club, and I get tired.
GPA. Yeah. I'm like, what? I'm in bed by 8:30.
I'm exhausted reading this.
Already. Yeah, exactly.
And you've got 3/4 of your day left.
Yeah.
So, talking about high school sports, you want to do a little preview?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. The one everyone sort of connects with the fall is football, right? Mm-hmm. So, what are we looking at in the Diocese of Camden in terms of the football teams this year?
Well, I got to see Holy Spirit play early in the year down the shore. They were playing in a big showcase down there, and they beat. It's funny because their opponent was Conwell Egan, which I live across the street from. So I drove to Ocean City to see the team across the street. But Holy Spirit was who I was covering that day. So, but they were great. They won, and they're undefeated on the year, 4-0. They're always one of the better teams in the area, but they're really taking off this year, and they have a chance. I'm not sure when this podcast runs, but they're playing St. Augustine on Friday. That's a big, they call it the Holy Wars.
Yes, for down there, that would be.
It's a big one.
Yeah, that's a big one.
So this will be out about 3 days after that. So
yeah.
Okay. So we don't know if they're still
great job, Holy Spirit.
Mark,
just will that into existence.
It's going to be 3 things. Why don't you write something for the social media? If you're listening to the podcast right now, check out our social media where you might see a score.
So, very exciting things happening there. We went out and saw Camden Catholic in the preseason, new coaching staff. Yep. Very excited. They're still off to a little bit of a rough start. Only won one of their first 3 games, but they're turning a corner. They're one of those teams that's on the way up. Paul VI has been very good this year as well. And then, Gloucester Catholic. And actually, the one I skipped over was Bishop Eustace. They've really struggled in the past a few years, and they're off to a great start this year. I think they started off 3-0.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
That's great.
Yeah, they beat Gloucester Catholic. I believe we had a photographer at that game.
We did.
So...
And was it Camden Catholic that we did this story on the quarterback?
Yes.
Yeah, and has had like 3 different playbooks that he's had to learn in this time.
Yeah.
It's tough when you get coaching changes like that. But the new coach, I tell you, I don't know how he is X's and O's. I haven't seen him in game action or anything, but he connects with the kids there. And
that's important.
It seems like a big difference. The kids, they want to be there. They're working hard. It just... These things don't happen overnight.
No, and you that's the hard part in that world, right? I mean, in the coaching world, to have them be there for a while to get through a couple of classes, or where they can grow with the kids and they can get the system in place.
Yeah, it's like everything you learned last year. Forget that.
Yeah,
now we're doing this.
And my older son is a big football fan like me, and he's goofing around with writing plays in a little notebook that he has, and you can see him in the backyard running the plays. And and I that was always, I never wanted to play football, would not have been able to play football, but that I found it so fascinating that they could learn that playbook. Or they hear hear these guys. I mean, again, the NFL, you hear the hundreds of names that they for a quick run pattern, but it's banana 4 at Z and all these things. So for high school kids to learn that once, on top of the fact of learning it 3 or 4 times, because it's the unfortunate nature of that changing, is incredible for them. So testament to the education that they're getting at the high school too, that they can learn all of that. How about my logical mind goes then, I guess soccer is another big fall sport that we see. So what's going on, and that's a co-ed, so there's men's and women's league there.
Well, starting with the boys, I guess I haven't seen them yet, but St. Augustine has a really good team this year. They were undefeated at the time we're talking about them, so anything can change because you're playing 3 times a week with that. But real good start for them. I did get out to see Gloucester Catholic the other day. They're struggling a little bit, but that's not a soccer school.
Right.
It's a lot of athletes that play other sports, as we just talked about, that are just playing soccer
together,
to keep in shape during the fall. Some baseball players, a lot of hockey players.
Yeah.
They have some great sports there, and they're grinding through it.
Yep.
They're having fun out there.
Sometimes that's what it's about. But like you said, some of them it's to keep in shape, and if it means playing a different sport, that's okay.
They're definitely one of the rougher teams. You could tell there's a lot of hockey players on that because there was some hip checking going on during that soccer game.
A lot of whistles on that.
Yeah,
there's no boards, guys. This is an open field situation. You can't.
But it shows how competitive they are.
Yeah,
I mean, even though they're
great.
not necessarily soccer players, they want to win.
Yeah.
More
That's
importantly,
great.
they don't like to lose.
and as John Kalitz would say, that's the mentality, right?
Yeah.
It's not necessly winning, but not losing.
Not
That's
losing.
exactly what you say.
How about for the girls' side?
Yeah, the girls' side, Holy Spirit's off to a great start. Haven't been out to see them yet, but Paul VI we featured a little bit in the preseason. They have very high expectations because they had one of those great runs last year where they entered the playoffs as, I believe it was like a 7 seed, and then they won the South Jersey bracket.
Yeah.
Just went on the road, took these long bus trips to all over the place and won that. And they were actually winning the state championship game in the second half. And, the inexperience caught up with them a little bit. And, they faltered, but it left them really hungry for this year. And they have a very talented team. And, they're going to be one of the ones we're looking at towards the end of the season.
That's great.
Sure.
Exciting.
And that's really exciting. And let's see, going through the visual list in my head, one sport that's near and dear to me, I didn't play it, obviously, but my sister did. And my dad and I used to love to go to the games because it was the most whistles we would hear in a game collectively, and that's field hockey. So you talk about, the Gloucester Catholic soccer team get a lot of whistles for hitting. This sport just has whistles for everything.
Yeah.
You can't hit the stick a certain length and the ball
Really?
going far. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. You really have to pay attention. And it was, for us, it was a funny thing because as I mentioned, we'll get to it, but I ran cross country and track and played a little bit of soccer, so those were easy. Like cross country, start, finish, whoever gets there first wins. There's not a lot of ambiguity there. There's not a lot of rules. And so to go to this and to just heads bopping back and forth, and then why that whistle? Okay, well now why that one? And I think my dad and I started just writing stuff down and saying to my sister, okay, what happened here? Because we have no idea. They just stopped and they started again, and there was a whistle in between.
But the players all know.
They do.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
They blow the whistle and then they're gone. There's no waiting around like soccer. There's some setting up. Field hockey is just boom, 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 and everybody seems to know what's going on. So I'm like you. I will watch field hockey probably more than any other sport because of my other freelance gigs, but I still don't know what's going on. But it's exciting and I love it. It's great. And if you want to see a great team, you have Camden Catholic right here.
Yeah.
They're the state champs from last year in the non-publics, and they lost 2 of the best players they've ever had in school history, and they're still incredibly good this year. So they're going to be exciting.
And is that Olivia Cole?
Olivia Bent Cole, and Ava Moore.
Ava Moore. Yeah.
Yeah, they were just incredible athletes to watch, and it's just amazing how they just reload. These kids that were freshmen and sophomores, all of a sudden they're the main players now, and they're ready to step in there. And they're start off the season great, undefeated. We'll see what happens. They load their schedule with some really tough opponents, so they may catch a loss here or there, but
they load them at the front with the tough tough opponents.
They play in all kinds of showcases. I believe they're going to be over. There's a big one in Pennsylvania over in Conshohock, and it's at the proving grounds where like all the best teams in the area play. So I think they're playing in that this year again. So. But regardless, they'll play Oak Knoll, who they play in the state championship. They'll face them in the preseason. They'll play them in the regular season. They love to play these teams and really get up to speed. I mean, it's quite a program they have there.
Yeah, that's an interesting phenomenon because you don't see that like in the college world, right? Like we're going through college football right now, and they play all of the sort of lower tier teams, not to begrudge any universities their football programs, but these big Power 5, the big conference schools, the Alabamas, the Texas, all these guys, they typically load their schedules with the smaller teams early, because then once they get into conference play and the ranked teams, that's, so I always find it's interesting that they do it that side, which I like. I mean, get yourselves, game hardened at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, their goal is to win another state championship. Yeah. They're not just happy with having an okay season. They want to go for it. So that's how you get there. You play the best you can find.
Yeah.
There's other great teams in the area. Bishop Eustace is always a tight game. They can find their competition here, and they also seek it out in other places. Like I'm just looking at their schedule now, and they're playing a team from Texas and a team from Connecticut in that showcase I just talked about.
Wow.
Where would your allegiance lie on that one, Jen? Would that be here now, or is that a Texas?
Being from Texas, yeah, I could see. I mean, I guess if it was a different season, I'd have to go with Texas. But since we are in fall, and that is my favorite season, and we don't have fall in Texas, I guess I'll stay local.
All right, it's a school called St. John's. I don't know. Texas is a big state, though. That could be anywhere.
Named after a saint. That is a shock. I don't think we do that.
One.
I don't think we do that at all. Name it after a saint. So we talked in one of the stories we just mentioned, but another fall sport is volleyball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think perennially, or most recently, Paul VI has been sort of a powerhouse.
Yeah.
They continuing to be that way?
They are. And that's another team that plays in showcases and plays teams from all over the place. It's funny because I went to Paul VI the one day to do the soccer stories. On the boys team was doing the Habitat Humanity story, and the girls team was involved in that a little bit, but I was going to do a story on their one player, Sophia Miller. And I posted some photos on Instagram, and the Paul VI volley coach texted me immediately saying, "Why didn't you come see us?" He was very angry. Yeah, but that's a great thing because he loves that we cover them, and they've given us a lot to cover the past few years.
Right.
They won a state championship 2 seasons ago. They got back to the state championship, I believe, last year, or they made it really far. And I asked him how they're going to be this year. He said they're going to be very good again.
All right.
It's another team we're going to be watching out for.
Keep an eye out on them. That sport in particular, I actually enjoy watching that one.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a small fear for me because in college I worked for the athletic department while I was in college as a part-time job, and one night they had to have the student guys do the line, with the flag, and be sort of like auxiliary referees. And I made a call that the opposing team did not care for, and I was petrified the rest of the game. And I every time I see volleyball play and one goes out of the line, I'm like, I get why that guy's not making the call right away, because you do not want to make the wrong one on that.
Trying to figure out if he's going to make it to the parking lot.
Yeah. Like, I'll help you, bud. We'll go together, because I get how scary this is. I mean, this is, almost 15, 20 years later, and I still remember that night. Put the flag up, and they, and they're so close, like every other indoor sport where the referees and the players are like on top of each other. I mean, they saw it, and they were never seen so many college female athletes and older coaches want to come at me at one time like that. But I think I came across, I was at a meeting at Paul VI and came across, one of their volleyball practices or games. And you're not kidding. I mean, the movement and the way that they set up everything and the athletes they have, it's incredible.
It's hard to photograph too, because it's a pinball machine. I mean, It's so fast how things are happening, and, trying to get the camera focused on somebody, and you almost got to guess sometimes, but it's so exciting. I love covering it.
And I think the last one I can think of, and then you can tell me if I've missed one, is I'll say last and certainly not least, because it was my sport, but cross country is going on in the fall. And they've had some, as you mentioned, Cherokee Challenge, which was a huge one down here. But what are the teams looking like for our area?
Yeah, it's early to tell how team-wise does, because I mean, it's when they play these big like the Cherokee Challenge, it's tough to see how a team scores in there, but you can start seeing some individuals kind of rise to the top. But in talking with Bishop Eustace's boys coach earlier this year, who was a hurler over in
Yes,
Ireland.
I loved that story.
Yeah.
I loved
You found that story, I believe, and sent that to me.
I did. And I had all of my Irish family be my backup editors because they were like my mom's father was a professional hurler in Ireland. So I sent it to her. I was like, can you make sure you edit this after I edit it to make sure I got all the terms, that we both got all the terms right?
Yeah, I had to do some research on that because I didn't know what was happening. But, that was a fun story. But in talking about some cross country with him, he said that the Diocese boys are going to have a real nice run this year. Not a big team, but very talented. So there should be one of the teams they look for. We do have another sport, though.
Yeah, okay.
We do have tennis.
Tennis, okay.
Yes.
I couldn't remember if that was spring or fall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the girls play in the fall and the boys play in the spring.
Okay.
So normally we don't have too much going on with tennis, but Wildwood Catholic's having a really nice season.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to get out there by the time this podcast actually runs. It's on my schedule.
All right.
That's cool.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, we're excited. They have a fun social media account too, so that kind of keeps you in touch with it all.
And this might be a cool story idea for later, or see how it progresses through the year. But I saw on their social media, and we actually shared it on the South Jersey Catholic Schools channel, is that they, for the first time in a while, have renewed the rivalry with the public school, the Wildwood High School.
Oh, okay.
So I think actually tennis was one of the sports over this past weekend or the weekend before that they had 3 or 4 sports almost going on at the same time that all featured that rivalry. So cross country was racing against them, tennis was playing, and I think both boys and girls soccer were in that weekend. So that's kind of a neat thing to see, especially down there locally, to renew something like that. Yeah,
really enjoy it.
Yeah, the kids probably have to know each other really well, just outside of the school atmosphere. So I saw that and thought that was really cool, and to hear that they're doing well, it made me think of that.
Yeah.
Speaking about social media, I did want to kind of bring up the fact that, and actually it's great that you said that the Paul VI coach reached out to you and said, wait, hold on, how come you didn't come here? Right. And that's one thing that I love about our coverage and your coverage is that the schools follow you back. And, a lot of times that after you feature a student or a school or a coach, we get a thank you too. Thank you to Mark Zimmaro and the Catholic Star Herald. I'm like, we got tagged, I get all excited, and stuff like that. But, tell me how it is interacting with the kids for social, because you're doing a pretty cool thing right now that I love. I actually saw it, sent it to 4 people, Mike Bress here being one of them, and Mike Walsh being the other, and I'm like, we got to see if Mark will do this for us. There's the online ad, on-air ask. But tell everybody what you've been doing and how fun that is.
All right, so in Philadelphia, we're covering the Philadelphia Catholic League. I covered the field hockey as a beat. And I just wanted to do something fun and different. I did this a little bit with the Burlington County Times with our Game On show, but, it was towards the very end, and it didn't, I guess, pick up or whatever. But I just decided, it's always kids talking about highlights and goals and things like that. Let's get them talking about other things. So I just came up with a list of kind of goofy questions that don't particularly have anything to do with field hockey. Mm-hmm. And the first one was I asked... as I went around, it was all the different teams. I'd take 3 or 4 girls from each team, and I would ask them, if you could have any superpower, what would you want and why? And just hearing the different answers
that
really
was
funny.
great.
Was
yes,
great.
That was so good. Yeah.
So
and the reasoning that they to watch them actually try to reason for that. Yeah.
Because a lot of them would pick the same thing, but it was for different reasons too.
Yeah.
And it's just a way of kind of highlighting their personalities a little bit more, and it's just a little added bonus, and they seem to really have fun with it. So
they seem to be having a lot of fun. Like Mike said, you can actually see it on their face that they're thinking about it. Mm-hmm. It's almost like they expect the questions about what the season's going to be like, this or that. But then this one comes, they're like, wait, what?
I was just talking to my friend about that.
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Because it's funny, because if somebody asked me, I'd probably think about it for 20 minutes and not have a good answer. But
I can tell you I've had hours-long discussion on that very question with friends and coworkers as you go along. So I could, and I think you mentioned, and that was where my head went, was they get the same questions, right? Yeah. If they're one of the top kids in their sport, they're being interviewed probably quite a bit, and it's what's the season look like? How are you feeling? What's next? All these things. So to get sort of a disarming question like that, or, toppings on your pizza, something like that, where you can see, and the other parties, not only are they thinking, but you can see them get more relaxed.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important too. It's, we laugh, and my part, I tell so when I do our social media content and we're thinking about doing videos or interviews, I always tell the principals, especially the elementaries, I want the most talkative kid, because otherwise we're going to get the head shakes. They're going to talk to me before the camera goes on. We had one of our photographers had come with me on one of the assignments, and the kid was talking to us before, set up the camera, the red light went on, and nothing.
Crickets.
Yeah, nothing. And
That's
we were like,
you,
where's
Mark.
the kid? Yeah, where's the kid from 5 minutes ago? So I think that's such a cool angle. Yeah. Did your twin brother come in here? What happened? Because this was a different kid, and that's a different animal too. They're young, you're younger, but I still think, I think that's such a cool way to get into that.
It's great how a lot of these kids are brought up, because they generally don't like talking about themselves when it comes to sports. They're humble kids. So it's just a way to get them to open up a little bit and talk. So
that really does beg the question. I'm going to ask you first, because I like Mark better. What would your superpower be?
It's flying.
Oh, okay.
I'm this getting here to there, and I could just walk out of my house, right into the air, land somewhere. What do they say when you talk about distance, as the crow flies, or as the that would just be, and it's cool. You're up in the air,
exactly.
Yeah,
and you're probably going to have a cape.
Oh, obviously,
right.
Yes. It's for air resistance alone. Just ergonomically,
Well, you really have given this some thought.
Listen, I can tell you, non-alcoholically, by the way, not with any kind of alcohol. I've had these discussions on hours on end, and now that I have two boys who are of that age, we will sit at the dinner table and talk about it. And I'm like, no, we're getting serious. This is a debate. Let's go. So yeah,
Mark.
Oh man, I don't know. Part of me wants to say super strength, because I'm not a big guy. I'm 5'7", and I'm 150 pounds. So, but I know there's better answers. So I would probably take Mike's answer, but even go a step further and do teleportation.
Oh,
then you don't even have to waste time flying.
Right,
You're just there.
Star Trek, Star Trek. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I would say that's the next evolution of that answer. Absolutely,
probably.
It's that much easier. Yeah.
Jen?
Jen?
Well, I would have picked flying, but now it's been taken too. So I'm going to go with my number 2, which is invisibility. Yeah, got to go with invisibility.
I will say, because we've quite literally had this conversation the other day. My kids put a somewhat moral angle on this conversation.
Oh, no.
And because you said invisibility, he was like, my one son was like, why would you really pick
Everybody always immediately goes, you're going to the girls' locker room.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's like, that doesn't seem like a good one to pick or something. And I was just like, what? No, what are you talking about? But I was like, way to put another layer on just the fun superhero question. I don't know if that's really good, Dad.
Yeah. Well, that's the one girl, or probably a few of them answered, they wanted to read minds.
Yes.
I think that would be the worst.
I do not
want to know what people are saying.
I don't even want to know what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I definitely don't want to know what somebody else is thinking.
What was it? The Mel Gibson, what women want, or the movie where you can hear, and it overloads at some point because there's just so many around that he has to run out of the building. So yeah, I think
that's
there's
accurate.
Yeah, there's a drawback to it.
Definitely not.
I like super strength though. Keep with that one. I'm there with you.
Good one.
Yeah. I was just sharing. We're talking about social media. I shared. I follow a lot of different sports things on Instagram, including Mark. But there was one funny video of some guy getting angry, and he just rips off his shirt and flexes at the people that he's arguing with, and he's not at all in shape, And I thought to myself, you have to be pretty bold to do that. And I said to my friend that I sent it to, I said, what would have been even funnier is if the person who was filming, this guy's confronting the guy with the phone videotaping, if it just turned around and it was The Rock. Or a big linebacker in football or something. This guy's messing with him. He's out of shape, and then he turned and see it's the most, in shape person you would ever meet. But
we're going to have to add that question to the wheel.
To the wheel. Yes. That's absolutely. That's to the wheel. So I have to ask. We talked about the fall sports, and we love all of our children the same amount, but do you have a specifically like a favorite sport to cover from I would say both from a writing but also video and photography standpoint? Are there easier ones? Like you said with volleyball, it's tough.
I'm definitely interested in the photography one too, because I have a lot of friends who are photographers, and when I mention a sport, they literally groan. So let's see here what's...
I get asked this a lot. I just don't know how to answer it, because I really change with the seasons too, and just the fall, I just love being outside. Yeah. I mean, as much as I love volleyball, if it's a nice day, I want to be outside. Yeah. But volleyball's great for when it's raining. So, I mean, I've been really into field hockey lately. Yeah. Especially over in Philly, because that's like all I cover over there, basically. So that's fun. I mean, there's nothing like covering a football game at night. Yeah. It's just the atmosphere, because you get the big crowds for it, and that just adds another layer of it. But, I'm not saying this just because you're a runner, but cross country was pretty cool to cover.
It is. It is cool to cover. Because you stand in one place and you get all the photos. It's the easiest. It's also the easiest.
You go along the court. You're not like shoulder to shoulder with people either. Like I'm not one of those people that I don't like big crowds. You know? So if I can be out somewhere and just find a nice scenic background and where they're going to come right at you, get a nice shot of them.
You know what would help with that? Cool. Invisibility.
Yeah. You could literally go anywhere.
Which is why I choose it. Because sometimes
you could stand right on the court.
I'm tired and I don't want to do small talk. I just want to do my story and go home. Not all the time. It's my favorite part is being out. But sometimes I'm like, if I could just be a fly on the wall.
Yeah. See, if I could be invisible and have my camera invisible as well.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, you could stand out on like the 50-yard line or whatever as football is happening.
And they wouldn't know you.
You'd have the best shots, and they would be wondering how you got them.
That's right.
We're on to something.
Yeah.
There we go.
We'll get NASA.
Delete that part off of this so nobody knows.
Yeah. This is our new angle that we have.
And what do you think is what do you think was one of the hardest sports to do photos for?
Hardest sport? Baseball's hard in a way because you don't know where the ball's going to go. Off the bat, it just goes anywhere, and it's such a big field, so it's really hard to get certain things with that. But you can also get some cool shots at home plate and things like that. Mm-hmm. So it's always challenging. But mainly the main challenge of baseball is all these parks are different, high school fields, and a lot of them are fenced in. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if the umpires are in a bad mood that day and they don't want to let you on the field, you're shooting through a fence, or it's really hard sometimes. And if the sun's coming in one way, you need to have it behind you, and maybe that's the outfield, and you're just you never know what you're getting until you get there. There's no way to really prepare for it, so it can be very challenging to shoot baseball. Some of the indoor sports too, like I said, volleyball is really tough because it's so fast, and there's a net in the way.
What about swimming? I always thought that would be difficult to shoot.
It is, yeah. It's because they're underwater right. for most of it. So
unless you're invisible. See, it's not creepy, people.
Yeah. Not when you're trying to get an award-winning shot. It's not.
Yeah.
In the pool, looking above.
I just usually hope that the kid that I'm covering for swimming is a breaststroker, because they kind of pop up a little bit. You can catch their face. So some of the other ones are really tough to get. So sometimes you gotta get a shot of them outside the pool, talking to their friends, or doing something, or the coach talking to them. But swimming is very, very challenging.
Oh, before we, because we're getting close to time, but Coach, you had a good coach question, I think.
Well, so I mean, I'm the son of a coach, so I'm always fascinated by the coaching element. But we talked about that there's some new coaches out there, so when you're covering them, and really just in broad and general, this was a question I was thinking about is how do you sort of look for that angle when they're newer? What kind of questions are you looking for? Like they're not really sure, right? Like ultimately they're sort of learning, but you're established, you kind of know the sport, and so you come in and so what are you looking to get out of them, or even the seasoned coaches really that, are maybe a little bit more guarded,
Yeah, sometimes it is tough pulling, from the guarded coaches. So you just gotta remind them that we're all human beings, and just looking for a story. This isn't the Philly Inquirer where we're trying to uncover something. Like we're just trying to tell some stories about some good kids. So once you present it to them like that, they're usually on board with it, and they might not have a kid come to their head right away of like who you should be looking for, but they'll give you some ideas, and then a story usually presents itself at some point. You know.
And when you're profiling the newer coaches, do you is it the same thing like with the newer athletes? Like, are you just kind of trying to make them comfortable?
Sure.
You're not trying to. It's not gotcha, kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, we don't do too many stories on new coaches. We like to keep the focus on the kids. At least that's always been my preference anyway. But if there's a good story to tell about a coach, like one that's hurling. In Ireland, that's pretty awesome.
Find that angle.
You got to tell that.
We're just one of these like legendary coaches. I mean, especially baseball. These guys seem to hang around forever. Barth at Gloucester Catholic. His name's escaping me right now, but at Bishop Eustace, Tropiano. These guys have just been there for so long and have seen so many things and seen so many of their, especially in baseball in our area, seen so many of these kids go into the Major League Baseball.
Was Gallon?
Yeah. He's a Bishop Eustace guy, and it's really fun. It might be a cool angle this year or next year as baseball starts up again, because these guys always seem to, when they come into Philly, like you'll see Tropiano go to the park and go see. It'd be cool to tag along with that one of these times. One of these professional players coming into Philly.
Well, I got to wrap up the podcast. But Mark, thank you so much for coming into the office, recording. I didn't even say we're in the vault.
Yep.
We're in the vault.
Okay.
And everybody, thanks for listening. Have a good week.